Well, this is going to be a noisy one. This is a busy road as we are walking through the village of Atworth today. So I will be doing voiceovers in certain places to avoid the noise. You can also hear some barking dogs as well as the crows and the other birds singing along, which is much better than when the traffic all roars by. So I've got a bit of a gap in the traffic. We're in Atworth. It has sometimes been called Atford in the past, although there is no ford here. There's no river running through Atworth. All the water was drawn from wells. I think a few little springs possibly around as well. But it's kind of a linear village. This is the newer part to a large extent coming up now, with the odd cottage, older cottage around. So we've got some interesting buildings to look out for. We'll get to the older part. There's a nice clock tower, a very old medieval barn as well that we can view. Won't be able to get into it because it's on a private farm. But as you can see, a fair few of the properties go back 50s, 60s, maybe a little bit earlier. They're built in. To my right leads down to the little hamlet of Pulpit, and here's one of the old chapels. I say, due to the noise of the traffic, I will pop in descriptions about places as we go along. I have the Parish Council notice board here. Take a look. And we're getting a lot closer now to some of the older buildings we're going to find and talk about. At one time, Atworth had a very large factory here, the Doughty factory, which was into making aircraft components. Prior to that, it had been Mendip Engineering. They'd set up here, having had a failed business over in Somerset. A company that actually made cars, which I'd never heard of until I did my research for Atworth and found out the background to Doughty, so I'll pop you some information in about that. Now also don't forget to visit rolandstravels.com, where we can expand a little bit on this video in written format. Some newer houses coming up on the left, the roundabout is. And where these newer houses are, this is where Doughty Engineering was. Because it's quite a large factory employing several hundred people. And there's still an industrial unit left at the back over there from the era, which are now different companies are in there, I believe. But all of this was one long engineering factory. So here's a picture of the factory before it was demolished, along with an aerial view, courtesy of Doughty Heritage. think the factory started before Doughty took it over, but they closed in 1991. The first industrial action seen on this site was, and the lorry go by, back in 1920s. First little cottage coming up. It does get quite noisy along here. This is the route from Melksham to Bath, about 2.5 miles sort of north west type area of Bath, of Melksham I mean. As you can see, looking at the gap, there are fields behind these houses, so it's a lovely rural setting for Atworth. Another older cottage here. It's very nice. And we have the remaining pub, the White Hart. So we'll tell you more about the White Hart as well. You'll notice something interesting coming up now on the corner of the building. We have some mounting steps. That's the coach house there. So the mounting steps enable you to bring your horse up, go up the steps and get on your horse easier. And as you can tell from the steps and the coach house that this was a coaching inn. It's been here for a long time. It was certainly trading before 1771, and we know that from dates from documents when Richard Poor, formerly at the Bear and Devizes, moved from Atworth to the King's Arms in Melksham. It's a very old property opposite. I'm afraid traffic is a problem with these busy villages where they've been dissected by a main road. There is evidence around Atworth that the Romans were here, a villa not too far away, and a Roman road just to the north of Atworth which went on to Bath. Nice to have a clock, everybody can see. And again, some older properties along here now. across the road and give you a view of the ones this side, the other way. Now the white building that you can see, the sort of pair of semis, that used to be a pub as well. That was the New Inn, and it goes back to at least 1763. Potentially the house next door at some point also was part of the New Inn. For a very short while, it has been recorded in 1841, particularly just for a few years, that the property on the left of the New Inn was the Butcher's Arms. Former shop here. Looks like it's still being used as an antique display. Now this is Post Office Lane, so I think we can assume one time perhaps that was the post office. We'll find out about that. Let's show you something interesting in the bus stop. Are you ready for this? We have one of the old village pumps right here in this bus stop. Coming up on the slight brow of the hill there is the clock tower. We'll take a look at that as we get to it. We have the village hall. Still got the bunting up for the coronation. Again, lots of modern properties have been built in along this main road. We're going to be going to where the clock tower is and then turning on to Bradford Road, where we'll see more of the older properties that are part of the original main section of Atworth. Interesting roof on that one. And as in many villages, you get a footpath that goes to a rank of houses running away from the road there. The wind is picking up speed a bit, so I hope it's not affecting the microphone. Try and shield it. And there's an old barn. Certainly a few hundred years of history at West Farm there, isn't there? And we're getting closer to the clock tower. This is a feature that people passing through Atworth will sea. And appropriately, clock tower view. We have an Atworth parish field map here as well to show us where we are. All the fields had names. Nice little history board as well. And that's the independent church, built 1790. Let's have a look around this clock tower. So the clock tower was built in honour of Queen Victoria. This was for her diamond jubilee, 60 years of her reign. And you'll see the date on the side here. 1897. Now interestingly, of course, the sign says it's the longest reign in British history, which Queen Elizabeth certainly succeeded that. So the stone obviously was of the time. And it's now used also as the Roll of Honour War Memorial. So here we come to what was the toll house here. This would be the turnpike. This is where you had to pay your toll to use the road back in the days of turnpikes. The phrase is believed to come from the fact you had to turn the staff or turn the pole out of the way so that people could get through having paid their fee. We're going to go up Bradford Road in a moment, but we'll just get across the road and show you a different view. And they've actually got the old toll house sign on that lovely old cottage. So very, very old. A lot of history there. So let's take a walk down Bradford Road. And as the name suggests, it's going to take us to Bradford-on-Avon. We've got a few more modern houses interspersed. But nevertheless, some very nice old cottages along here. Just behind this row of trees, very grand house. This is Atworth House. Farm as well. Now the building came up on the right, the old forge, that was a pub. So I'm going to tell you about the pub. Now this pub dates back to 1766, at least that. It's been referred to as the Three Horseshoes and later the Hare and Hounds. It actually was converted into a forge in 1861 by a gentleman from Potterne by the name of Richard Hampton. It of course now is a private house known as the Old Forge. And here's the school. That goes back a fair few years as well, so let's tell you about Churchfield's Village School. There has been a school in Atworth for quite a long time, at least from 1848, but not on this site. The school used to be held in a cottage opposite Church Farm that we'll come to in a little while. That closed in 1870. The school was built to replace that, and the school logbook starts on January the 15th in the year 1866. That's when Mary A. Bailey first took charge of this school, and it's been going ever since. So the building you can see in front of us there, that was a pub. That was the last one to actually close, I believe. Had a spell of being reopened. And we'll just take a walk down to the church. The houses more or less come to an end just as you go through that narrow section of road. Some lovely old cottages along here, aren't we? Looking back many hundreds of years, look at that. Just over there we can see the centre point of the medieval tithe barn. But anyway, let's take a look around the churchyard a moment. This church is a little bit newer. You might think the tower is the oldest. Now the tower, when we get to it, was part of a church that was built here in 1451. And the rest of that church in the 1830s was deemed unsafe and too small, so they built the current church on that, but retained the tower. You can see where the tower once had another building fastened to it. And indeed, it's technically separate to the church. And then built on just with that connecting passage there. I believe the tower still has the original bells. Very peaceful out here, isn't it? And we have got some very old graves as well, which are going to be difficult to make out. That one's actually 1877. The lichen's doing quite well in covering it up. (1885), and then later on, second burial 1907. So a mixture of more recent graves and the much older ones. There was a chapel on this site prior to the church being built in 1451. I say only the tower remains of that now. And the chapel was here from the 11th century, it is believed. So quite a long history on this site. And then the old farm there. We can get a better view of the barn. Oh, we have squirrels playing. Sorry to disturb you, Mr. Squirrel and Mrs. Squirrel. Here's a better view of the barn and the farm. I hope you've enjoyed this walk around the village of Atworth. It's close to Melksham in Wiltshire, so if you're ever in the area, do take a look for yourself. Now, if you want to join me on more walks and tours, please do subscribe to this channel. It'll be great to have you along and to enjoy the journeys together. There's plenty of places planned, so I do hope that you will come along with me and learn about the history of these places. Check out my newsletter as well at rolandstravels.com, or rolandmillward.com will also find it, and you'll be able to get each of the articles that I write delivered directly to your inbox. You can also download the Substack app. The link is in each article for you to be able to read it directly on your phone without the use of email as well. So lots of things for you there, more in-depth articles, some things in addition to the video tours that I do, so they're not going to appear on YouTube, and some things on YouTube will not be in the newsletter. So be part of both. Subscribe to the newsletter and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Continue to enjoy the view here at Atworth as we just finish off the tour around the church on this beautiful day, and certainly it's nice to have some sunshine in May and some warm weather like this, and we look forward to getting out and about bringing you more views. Take care everybody, and thank you.